The message arrived at exactly 0800 hours, ship time. Dae-ho Kim was drinking his morning coffee in his office when the communication terminal lit up with urgent red lights. He set down his cup and walked over to the screen. The sender identification made him pause. It was from the Galactic Council itself. Dae-ho had been Earth's ambassador to the galaxy for 3 years now. In that time, he had dealt with trade disputes, border conflicts, and diplomatic protests. But he had never received a direct message from the Council's central command. This was new. This was different. He pressed the activation button. The holographic display showed the official seal of the Galactic Council, a circle of stars representing the major species that ruled known space. Below it, text appeared in standard galactic script, automatically translated into human language. To the human representative stationed at Nexus Prime, you are required to appear before the full Galactic Council within 7 standard days. The location is Capital Station. The matter is of highest priority. Failure to comply will result in sanctions against the human species. This is not a request. Dae-ho read the message 3 times. Each time it felt more ominous. The language was cold and formal. There were no pleasantries, no diplomatic courtesy. It read more like a court summons than an invitation to talks. The door to his office opened. Bin Lee walked in carrying a data tablet and wearing his usual serious expression. Bin was Dae-ho's military attaché, a former soldier who had fought in the Outer Rim conflicts 2 years ago. He was also one of the few people Dae-ho trusted completely. "Sir, I'm picking up unusual chatter on the diplomatic channels," Bin said. Then he noticed Dae-ho's expression. "What's wrong?" Dae-ho turned the screen toward Bin. "Read this." Bin's eyes moved across the text quickly. His jaw tightened as he finished. "This doesn't sound good, sir. When did it arrive?" 5 minutes ago. Dae-ho sat back in his chair. "What kind of chatter are you hearing?" "Multiple species are suddenly very interested in human activities. The Dominion has been asking questions about our military strength. The hegemony wants to know about our population numbers. And the Primarchs?" Bin paused. "The Primarchs are asking about our home planet's location." A chill ran down Dae-ho's spine. The Primarchs were the oldest known species in the galaxy. They rarely spoke to younger civilizations directly. If they were asking about Earth, something big was happening. "Get So Young in here," Dae-ho said. "Now." Bin nodded and spoke into his communication device. Within minutes, So Young Park entered the office. She was the embassy's intelligence officer, a sharp woman who seemed to know everything that happened in this sector of space before it actually happened. "You've seen the message," she said before either man could speak. "How did you know?" Dae-ho asked. "Because I've been tracking similar messages sent to other human diplomatic stations across the galaxy. Every human representative has received the same summons." "So?" Young pulled out her data tablet. "This is coordinated, sir. They want all of humanity's diplomatic corps in one place." "That could be good or bad," Bin observed. "It's bad," So Young said flatly. "I've been monitoring alien communications for the past month. There's been a lot of talk about humanity in certain circles. Not good talk." She activated her tablet's holographic display. A map of local space appeared, showing various alien territories. Several areas were highlighted in red. The Dominion has been complaining about human expansion into what they call their traditional influence sphere. The hegemony doesn't like how we've been forming alliances with smaller species. And the Primarchs? She paused. "The Primarchs are upset that we won't acknowledge their authority over us." Dae-ho studied the map. "What about our recent victories in the Outer Rim?" "That's probably what triggered this," So Young replied. "When humanity defeated the Raiders last year, it surprised everyone. When we won against the Syndicate forces 6 months ago, it worried them. When we pushed back the Dominion's expansion into the neutral zone 3 months ago," she shrugged. "That's when the real complaints started." Bin crossed his arms. "So they're angry because we're good at defending ourselves?" "They're angry because we're not acting like a young species should," So Young explained. "In Galactic, Politics, new civilizations are supposed to be grateful for guidance from older ones. They're supposed to accept junior status and work their way up slowly over centuries. But we haven't done that, Daiho said. No. We showed up, looked around, and started doing things our own way. We made friends with species the big powers ignore. We refused to pay tribute or accept protection deals. And worst of all, we started winning fights we were supposed to lose. Daiho walked to the window of his office. Outside, he could see the busy docks of Nexus Prime Station. Ships from dozens of species came and went constantly. Humans worked alongside aliens, trading goods and sharing technology. It looked peaceful. It looked like the future humanity had hoped for when they first reached the stars. But now that future felt threatened. What do you think they want? He asked. Control, So Young said simply. They want to put us in our place, make an example of us for other young species who might get similar ideas. And if we don't go, then they'll have justification for whatever they were planning to do anyway. They'll say we're uncooperative, dangerous, a threat to galactic peace. Bin stepped forward. Sir, this feels like a trap. Maybe we should decline, make them come to us. That won't work, So Young said. If we refuse, they'll use it as an excuse to take direct action against human colonies. They might even blockade Earth itself. Daiho turned back to his staff. These two people had been with him through every crisis of the last 3 years. Bin had saved his life twice during the Raider conflicts. So Young had prevented 3 separate diplomatic disasters with her intelligence work. If anyone could help him navigate the situation, it was them. So our choices are go and face whatever they have planned, or refuse and definitely face military action, he said. That's about right, So Young confirmed. Then we go. Daiho's voice was firm. But we go prepared? So Young, I want everything you can find about the current political situation in the Council. Who supports what? Who owes favors to whom? Everything. Already working on it, sir. Bin, I want you to quietly contact our military commanders. Don't do anything to provoke anyone, but make sure our people know what's happening. Understood. Daiho looked at the message again. 7 days to get to Capital Station. 7 days to prepare for what might be the most important diplomatic encounter in human history. One more thing, he said. Start putting together a list of human achievements over the last 3 years. Every trade agreement, every alliance, every conflict we've won or resolved peacefully. I have a feeling we're going to need to remind some people exactly what humanity brings to this galaxy. As his staff left to begin their work, Daiho remained at the window. Somewhere out there, powerful alien civilizations were planning something for his species. They saw humanity as a problem to be solved, a young upstart that needed to be put in its place. They had no idea what they were dealing with. Capital Station was the largest artificial structure humans had ever seen. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, a massive wheel spinning slowly in space. The station housed the Galactic Council chambers, diplomatic quarters for hundreds of species and enough firepower to destroy a small moon. As Daiho's ship approached the docking bay, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. First time here? Asked Wu Jin Choi, the xenobiologist who had joined their team for this mission. He was young for such an important role, but his understanding of alien cultures was better than anyone else in human space. Yes, Daiho replied, watching the station grow larger through the viewport. You? I was here once as a student, years ago. Back then, humans were barely allowed in the observation galleries. Now you're speaking before the full council. Wu Jin paused. The galaxy has changed fast. Too fast for some people, Daiho thought. That was probably why they were here. The docking process took an hour. Capital Station's security was extensive and human ships received extra attention. Daiho's diplomatic credentials were checked 3 times. Their luggage was scanned twice. Even their personal data devices were examined by station security. They're not taking any chances. Bin observed quietly as they finally disembarked. The station's interior was even more impressive than its exterior. The corridors were wide enough for the largest alien species to move comfortably. The walls displayed constantly changing artwork from across the galaxy. Gravity was kept at galactic standard, which was lighter than Earth normal but heavier than most worlds preferred. Their quarters were in the diplomatic section, a series of rooms designed to accommodate human physiology. The furniture was the right size, the air mixture was Earth standard, and the lighting matched their home star's spectrum. It was a small kindness in what felt like an increasingly hostile environment. "The hearing is tomorrow at 1400 station time," So Young reported, reading from her data tablet. "All human representatives are to be present. The format will be formal council procedure." "What does that mean exactly?" Dae-ho asked. Wu Jin looked up from his own research. "It means we stand in the center of the chamber while they sit in a circle around us. It's designed to make the people in the center feel isolated and overwhelmed." "Psychological warfare," Bin said. "Exactly. The council chamber can hold representatives from over 100 species. When it's full, the sound of their voices can be overwhelming. The layout makes you feel very small and very alone." Dae-ho nodded. "What about the actual procedure?" "The chancellor will state the purpose of the gathering. Then individual council members can make statements or ask questions. After that, we're allowed to respond." Wu Jin frowned. "But there's something strange about this whole thing." "What do you mean?" "I've been reviewing the council's protocols. This kind of full assembly is usually reserved for major decisions, admitting new species to the council, declaring wars, things like that. They don't normally gather everyone just to scold a junior member." So Young looked up from her tablet. "That matches what I'm hearing in the intelligence channels. This isn't just a diplomatic complaint, they're planning something bigger. Like what? I'm not sure yet. But I'm picking up communications suggesting that some council members see this as a chance to correct a mistake in how humanity was initially welcomed into galactic society." That evening, Dae-ho couldn't sleep. He walked to the window of his quarters and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among those points of light was Earth, humanity's homeworld. 37 billion people living their lives, most of them unaware that their entire future might be decided in the next few days. His door chimed. "Come in," he called. It was Wu Jin carrying a cup of tea. "Thought you might be awake." "Hard to sleep before making the most important speech of your life," Dae-ho admitted. "I've been thinking about what we're really facing tomorrow," Wu Jin said, sitting down. "It's not just politics. It's about fear." "Fear of what?" "Fear of change. The galaxy has been stable for a long time. The same species have been in charge for centuries. Everyone knows their place in the order of things. Then humans show up and start changing the rules." Dae-ho accepted the tea gratefully. "We haven't tried to change anything. We've just been defending ourselves and making friends. That's exactly what scares them. You see, most young species that enter galactic society do it the traditional way. They're discovered by an older civilization, brought into the community as junior partners, and slowly work their way up over generations. It's predictable. But that's not how it happened with us. No. Humans discovered faster-than-light travel, on their own. They explored space independently. They made first contact with multiple species simultaneously. And instead of asking permission to expand, they just did it." Wu Jin sipped his tea. "From the council's perspective, humans are unpredictable. They can't be controlled through the normal methods, and that's dangerous to the established order. So, what do they want to do about it? Put us back in the box. Make us follow the rules that everyone else follows. Accept our place as the newest, least important members of galactic society." Dae-ho considered this, and if we refuse, then they'll use force to make their point. Not necessarily military force, though that's possible. Economic sanctions, diplomatic isolation, trade embargoes. They have a lot of tools. The next morning came too quickly. Dae-ho, dressed in his finest diplomatic uniform, a formal black suit with the emblem of United Earth on the collar. He looked at himself in the mirror and tried to project confidence. He didn't entirely feel. The council chamber was even more intimidating than Wu Jin had described. It was a vast circular room with seating for hundreds of representatives. The center area where humans would stand was surrounded by rising tiers of seats, creating the impression of being at the bottom of a deep well. As they entered, Dae-ho could see representatives from dozens of species already in their places. The Dominion delegation sat in the positions of honor, their tall, gray-skinned forms radiating authority. The hegemony representatives were smaller, but no less imposing, their multiple arms gesturing as they spoke among themselves. The ancient Primarchs sat in their traditional place of respect, their crystalline forms catching and reflecting the chamber's lights. "Stay close," Deho whispered to his team as they walked to their designated position in the center. The chamber filled quickly as more species arrived. Soon nearly every seat was occupied. The noise level was incredible. Hundreds of different voices speaking in dozens of languages, all translated simultaneously by the chamber's systems. The sound created a wall of noise that seemed to press in from all sides. Then suddenly silence fell. Chancellor Vextar of the Dominion had risen from his seat. He was tall even by Dominion standards, his gray skin marked with the ritual scars of high office. When he spoke, his voice carried easily through the chamber's acoustics. "We are gathered today to address a matter of great concern to the galactic community," he began. "The rapid and uncontrolled expansion of the species known as humanity has created instability in multiple sectors. Their refusal to accept guidance from more experienced civilizations has led to conflicts that threaten the peace we have maintained for generations." Deho felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. Around the chamber, he could see alien representatives nodding in agreement with the Chancellor's words. "Today we will examine the evidence of human aggression and determine what steps must be taken to restore proper order to our galaxy." As the Chancellor sat down, Deho realized that this wasn't going to be a hearing or a negotiation. It was going to be a trial, and humanity was the defendant. Erajung rose from her seat among the ascended delegation. Her species looked almost like living light, their translucent forms shifting between different colors as their emotions changed. Right now, she was a cold blue that suggested disapproval. As the Council's chief prosecutor, she had built her reputation on eloquent arguments that could sway entire assemblies. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice carrying a musical quality that was both beautiful and unsettling. "We gather today not to celebrate diversity, but to address a threat to the very foundations of our galactic community." A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a map of local space. Red markers indicated various locations where humans had established colonies or trade relationships. For 3 years, the species calling itself humanity has spread across space like a disease. They ignore established territorial boundaries. They form alliances without seeking approval from recognized authorities. They interfere in conflicts that are none of their concern. The display changed, showing video footage from various incidents. Deho recognized several scenes: human ships defending merchant vessels from pirates, human diplomats negotiating peace between warring factions, human colonies providing aid to refugees. They claim these actions are defensive or humanitarian, Era continued. But observe the pattern. In every case, human involvement leads to disruption of established order. Traditional power structures are challenged. Long-standing agreements are questioned. Around the chamber, representatives were nodding. Deho could feel the mood shifting against humanity with each word the prosecutor spoke. She was skilled at her job, taking positive actions and making them sound threatening. "Most concerning of all," Era said, her form shifting to a deeper, angrier red, "is their military capability. Despite being one of the youngest species, in known space, humans have achieved victory against forces that should have easily defeated them." The display now showed battle footage from the Outer Rim conflicts. Human ships, smaller and apparently less advanced than their opponents, nevertheless winning engagement after engagement through unconventional tactics and stubborn determination. How does a species barely 2 centuries into space travel defeat civilizations that have been warfaring for millennia? The answer is simple. They do not fight with honor. They use deception, surprise attacks, and weapons designed to cause maximum psychological impact, rather than clean military defeat. Deho's hands clenched into fists at his sides. She was describing human military tactics as if they were somehow unfair or immoral. The fact that humans won by being smarter and more adaptable was being presented as evidence of their unworthiness. The prosecution rests its case on these simple facts, Ara concluded. Humanity is too young, too aggressive, and too unpredictable to be trusted with the freedom they currently enjoy. For the good of galactic stability, they must be brought under proper supervision. She sat down to murmurs of approval from many sections of the chamber. Chancellor Vextar rose again, his imposing figure commanding immediate attention. The evidence speaks clearly, he said, but before we proceed to judgment, let us examine the defendants more closely. The Chancellor stepped down from his elevated position and walked toward the center of the chamber where the human stood. His footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. When he stopped, he was close enough that Daiho could see the details of his ritual scarring and the cold intelligence in his dark eyes. Look at them, Vextar said, his voice carrying easily throughout the chamber. Soft creatures from a minor world at the edge of civilized space. Their skin is weak, their bodies small, their lifespans brief. They have no natural weapons, no thick hides, no powerful limbs. He walked slowly around the human delegation as if they were specimens in a laboratory. Their home world is unremarkable. Moderate gravity, mild climate, abundant water. They evolved, without significant challenges, without the harsh conditions that forge true strength. They are in essence barely evolved primates who stumbled onto technology they do not truly understand. The insult hit Daiho like a physical blow. Around the chamber he could hear chuckling from various alien delegates. The Chancellor's words were calculated to demean not just the human representatives present, but their entire species. Consider their recent victories, Vextar continued, making air quotes with his long fingers. The Raider War. They won through luck and the Raiders' overconfidence. The Syndicate conflict. They succeeded only because they attacked civilian targets instead of facing military forces directly. The Neutral Zone incident. They prevailed because they violated established rules of engagement. More laughter from the gallery. Daiho's jaw was so tight it was beginning to ache, but he maintained his diplomatic composure. Beside him he could feel Bin's tension like a coiled spring. So Young's face was carved from stone, showing nothing. But perhaps, the Chancellor said, returning to his position in front of the humans, we should let others share their observations of these remarkable creatures. Quintal of the hierarchy stood up. His species were known for their massive size and thick armored skin. When he spoke, his voice was like grinding stone. I have observed humans in combat, he rumbled. They fear pain. They avoid direct confrontation. They rely on machines to do their fighting because they lack the physical courage to face their enemies personally. More approving sounds from the assembly. Daiho wanted to point out that using superior technology and tactics was called intelligence, not cowardice, but he held his tongue. Sage Prime Zelnoth of the Academic Consortium spoke next. His people were renowned throughout the galaxy for their intellectual achievements. They had discovered the fundamental laws of faster-than-light physics and developed much of the technology that made galactic civilization possible. From a scientific perspective, Zelnoth said in his dry, professorial tone, human intelligence appears to be primarily pattern recognition, a crude ability to copy and modify existing concepts rather than generate truly original thought. Their technological advancement is based entirely on reverse engineering devices created by superior minds. That stung worse than the physical insults. Humans prided themselves on their ingenuity and creativity. To have it dismissed as mere mimicry by one of the galaxy's foremost scientific authorities was deeply insulting. War Chief Brackmore of the militant clans was the next to speak. His species had been warriors for thousands of years, their entire culture built around concepts of honor, strength, and martial prowess. Their military tactics are those of scavengers and cowards, he declared. They strike from ambush, retreat when faced with superior force, and use trickery instead of honest combat. They win battles through deception, not skill or courage. Debut. War Chief's contempt was obvious in every word. To his warrior culture, the way humans fought was apparently not just ineffective, but morally wrong. Chancellor Vextar raised his hand for silence and looked directly at Daiho. Perhaps the most telling evidence of human inadequacy is their diplomatic behavior. They were offered the opportunity to enter galactic society gradually, with proper guidance and supervision. Instead, they insisted on acting independently, making their own decisions, forming their own alliances. He paused for effect. This is not the behavior of a mature species ready for galactic citizenship. This is the behavior of children who refuse to accept that their elders know better. Children who need to be disciplined. The word disciplined hung in the air like a threat. Around the chamber, Deho could see alien representatives leaning forward, eager to hear what punishment would be proposed. But perhaps, Vextar continued, the most damning evidence of human primitiveness is their greatest achievement, learning to make fire without burning down their own forests. The laughter that followed was not just mocking. It was dismissive, the kind of amusement reserved for something so far beneath consideration that it barely deserved notice. Deho felt heat rising in his chest, anger building despite his diplomatic training. Throughout this barrage of insults, the human delegation had remained perfectly still. Their discipline was so complete that some of the more observant council members were beginning to take notice. There was something unsettling about their absolute calm in the face of such calculated humiliation. Hijin Nam, Deho's aide, stood slightly behind her superior. Her face showed nothing, but those who looked closely might have noticed the slight tightening around her eyes, the only sign of the fury building within the human delegation. As the laughter died down, and Chancellor Vextar prepared to deliver what he clearly intended as the final, crushing blow to human dignity, Deho made a decision. It was time to show these ancient, comfortable civilizations exactly what they were dealing with. The Chancellor raised his voice for his concluding statement. The evidence is clear. Humanity is a young, weak, primitive species that has been allowed to run wild in the galaxy for far too long. They are dangerous precisely because they do not understand their limitations. They are children playing with weapons of war, and it is time for responsible adults to take those toys away before someone gets hurt. The chamber erupted in approving noise. Clicks, whistles, roars, and other sounds of agreement from dozens of different species. The silence in the council chamber was complete. Hundreds of alien representatives waited to see how the humans would respond to the systematic destruction of their reputation. Many expected begging, pleading, or desperate attempts to argue against the charges. Some anticipated angry outbursts that would only prove the point about human immaturity. Nobody expected Deho Kim to smile. He stood slowly, his movements careful and controlled. When he reached his full height, he looked around the chamber, making eye contact with representatives from every major species present. His smile never wavered. "Honorable representatives," he began, his voice calm and measured. It carried easily through the chamber's acoustics, reaching even the highest tiers of seating. "I want to thank you for this opportunity to address the council." There was something in his tone that made several representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the voice of a defeated diplomat. This was something else entirely. "You have made many points about my species today. You have called us weak, primitive, lucky, and immature. You have questioned our intelligence, our courage, our right to exist as independent members of galactic society." Deho paused, letting his words sink in. "You are correct." A murmur ran through the chamber. This wasn't what anyone had expected. Chancellor Vextar leaned forward in his seat, confused by the human's apparent agreement with his accusers. "We are young," Deho continued. "By galactic standards, humanity has been spacefaring for barely a moment. Many of your civilizations were exploring the stars when our ancestors were still learning to use stone tools." He began to walk slowly, not pacing nervously, but moving with purpose around the center of the chamber. "We are physically weak. The average human cannot match the strength of a hierarchy warrior, the speed of a Dominion scout, or the endurance of a militant clan raider. Our bodies are soft, our natural weapons are pitiful, our lifespans are brief." More murmurs. Some representatives were beginning to look puzzled. Where was this leading? "We are, as Chancellor Vextar so eloquently stated, barely evolved primates from an unremarkable world. Our planet faces no extreme conditions, no harsh environments that would forge us into natural warriors or deep thinkers. We evolved in comfort, without the challenges that shaped your mighty civilizations. Daiho stopped walking and faced the Chancellor directly. But you have made one critical error in your assessment of humanity. The temperature in the chamber seemed to drop several degrees. When Daiho spoke again, his voice carried an edge that cut through the air like a blade. You assume that evolution stops? He let that statement hang in the silence for a long moment, before continuing. You believe that reaching the stars represents the pinnacle of development. You think that establishing galactic civilizations means achieving perfection. You have convinced yourselves that advancement has an endpoint, and that your ancient species have reached it. Daiho's eyes swept across the assembled representatives, and many of them felt an uncomfortable chill at his gaze. The Primarchs achieved faster-than-light travel 12,000 years ago. Since then, their technology has barely improved. The Dominion built their empire 8,000 years ago, and have been managing it ever since, making no significant advances. The hierarchy reached their current level of development 6,000 years ago, and declared themselves satisfied. He paused again, letting the implications of his words settle. You have grown comfortable. You have become satisfied with your achievements. You have stopped trying to become something better than what you are. The silence was now absolute. Even the usual background noise of the chamber's life support system seemed muted. Humans are different, Daiho said quietly. We never stopped climbing. We never stopped fighting. We never stopped evolving. Chancellor Vextar attempted to interrupt, rising from his seat. This is mere sit down. The command rang through the chamber with such authority that Vextar actually took a step back. Around the assembly, representatives who had been leaning forward suddenly found themselves pressing back into their seats. There was something in the human ambassador's voice that spoke to instincts older than civilization. Daiho waited until the Chancellor had reluctantly resumed his seat before continuing. You mock our humble origins, but those origins forged us in ways your comfortable civilizations cannot comprehend. Every day on Earth was a struggle, against the environment, against predators, against each other. We learned to adapt because adaptation was survival. His voice began to rise, not in anger but in intensity. We learned to use tools because our bodies were weak. We learned to cooperate because individually we were vulnerable. We learned to think creatively because following instinct wasn't enough. We learned to never stop improving because improvement was the difference between life and death. He gestured toward the assembled aliens. When your species achieved spaceflight, they felt complete. They had conquered their greatest challenge, reached their ultimate goal. But when humans achieved spaceflight, we looked at our single planet and saw a prison. Several representatives were now leaning forward again, but this time it was with fascination rather than superiority. You achieved faster-than-light travel and considered it sufficient. We achieved it and immediately began working to make it faster, better, more efficient. You built weapons and declared them adequate. We built weapons and immediately started designing better ones. Daiho's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, yet somehow it filled the entire chamber. You want to know why these primitive apes have been winning against your superior forces? Because while you have been congratulating yourselves on ancient victories, we have been preparing for the next war. The implications of that statement hit the assembly like a physical wave. Around the chamber, military representatives were suddenly calculating threat assessments, wondering what other surprises humanity might have in store. While you have been managing your empires, we have been imagining how to build better ones. While you have been resting on evolutionary achievements that are thousands of years old, we have been evolving. Daiho began walking again, his movement now predatory rather than diplomatic. Sage Prime Zelnoth dismisses human intelligence as pattern recognition and imitation. He is correct. We are excellent at taking things apart to see how they work. But what terrifies him is what we do next. We build something better. He looked directly at the academic consortium representative. Your people invented faster-than-light physics. Brilliant work, truly groundbreaking. You should be proud. It only took you 3,000 years to perfect the theories. Humans reverse-engineered your work in 30 years and have been improving. On it ever since. Zelnoth's crystalline form flickered with what might have been alarm. War Chief Brackmore calls our tactics cowardly because we use strategy instead of honor, technology instead of muscle, intelligence instead of tradition. He is welcome to his opinion, but I notice that his honorable warriors keep losing to, our cowardly ones. The War Chief's response was a low growl that echoed through the chamber, but he made no attempt to interrupt. Quintal criticizes our reliance on machines rather than personal combat. Fair enough. But our machines are getting better every year, while his warriors remain exactly as strong as they were a century ago. Deho stopped in the center of the chamber and spread his arms wide. You call us children playing with weapons we don't understand. You are half right. We are children. Curious, relentless, never satisfied children who take apart everything we find to see how it works, then build something better. His arms dropped to his sides. And yes, we are playing with weapons. But here is what terrifies you, though you may not yet realize it. We understand those weapons better than you do, because we never stopped trying to understand them better. The silence that followed was different from before. It was not the silence of anticipation or confusion. It was the silence of dawning realization, of comfortable assumptions being shattered, of established orders suddenly seeming less permanent. When Deho spoke again, his voice was soft, almost conversational. You brought us here to remind us of our place in the galactic order, to teach us humility, to show us that we are small and young and should know our limitations. He smiled again, and this time the expression sent chills through observers who had thought themselves apex predators. Consider your mission accomplished. Deho's smile widened, but there was nothing warm about it. It was the smile of a predator that had been playing with its food and was now ready to feed. Around the chamber, the most perceptive representatives were beginning to understand that something fundamental had shifted in the last few minutes. Our place is not beneath you, Deho said, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. Our place is not among you, pretending to be equals while accepting your judgment on our worthiness. He paused, and in that silence, several species representatives felt something they had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty about their position in the galactic order. Our place is ahead of you, waiting for you to catch up. The words hit the assembly like a physical blow. Gasps, clicks, and other sounds of shock rippled through the gathered representatives. No species had ever spoken to the Galactic Council this way. No junior member had ever challenged the fundamental assumption of the older civilization's superiority. Chancellor Vextar shot to his feet, his ritual scars darkening with rage. How dare you? How dare I what? Deho interrupted, his voice cutting through the Chancellor's outrage like a knife through silk. Tell the truth? Point out facts that make you uncomfortable? Challenge assumptions you have held for so long that you forgot they were assumptions? He turned to address the full assembly, his voice rising to fill every corner of the chamber. You want to know what humanity has accomplished in just 3 years? We have formed stable alliances with 47 different species. We have mediated 17 territorial disputes without a single shot being fired. We have eliminated 3 separate piracy networks that were terrorizing trade routes you had written off as acceptable losses. The holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered to life, showing images and data that So Young had prepared over the past days. Trade statistics, conflict resolutions, technological innovations, all documented proof of human contributions to galactic civilization. We have improved faster-than-light communication efficiency by 30%. We have developed medical techniques that have saved millions of lives across dozens of species. We have created agricultural methods that have ended famines on 12 worlds. The display continued to cycle through achievements, each one more impressive than the council members had realized. And yes, Deho continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. We have won every military conflict we have been forced to engage in, not through luck, not through cowardice, not through violating your precious rules of honor, but through adaptation, innovation, and the simple refusal to accept defeat. War Chief Brackmore stood up, his massive form radiating aggression. Your Victories mean nothing against a united galactic response. One young species cannot stand against the combined might of the established order. Deho looked at him for a long moment, and his smile became something truly terrifying. "You're absolutely right," he said quietly. "One young species couldn't possibly stand against the combined might of your ancient civilizations. Fortunately for us, you're not united." He gestured toward different sections of the chamber. "The Dominion wants to absorb human territory into their sphere of influence. The hegemony wants to control our trade routes. The Primarchs want us to acknowledge their spiritual authority. The academic consortium wants access to our research. The militant clans want to test themselves against our military." Each group he mentioned shifted uncomfortably as their motivations were laid bare. "You all want different things from humanity, and some of those things are mutually exclusive. You cannot unite against us, because you cannot agree on what to do with us once you have defeated us." The truth of this statement was immediately apparent. Around the chamber, representatives from different factions were looking at each other with sudden suspicion, realizing that their allies in condemning humanity were also their competitors for the spoils. "But there is a more fundamental problem with your assumption," Deho continued. "You assume that we would stand alone?" The chamber's display changed again, showing a new map of local space. This one showed not just human colonies and trade routes, but alliance networks, mutual defense pacts, and diplomatic relationships. "We have 47 allied species, not client states, not tribute-paying vassals, but genuine allies who benefit from our friendship and would be harmed by our destruction. Several of them are represented in this very chamber." Murmurs of alarm began to spread as council members realized that a war against humanity would not be the simple disciplinary action they had envisioned. Sage Prime Zelnoth spoke up, his voice carefully controlled. "Even with allies, you remain a young species with limited resources compared to the great powers of the galaxy." "True," Deho acknowledged, "but you are making the same mistake that everyone who has underestimated humanity makes. You are thinking in terms of current capabilities rather than potential for growth." He walked closer to the academic consortium's seating area. "Your people achieved their current level of technology 6,000 years ago and have been refining it ever since. Admirable work. You have created truly elegant solutions to complex problems. But in the past 3 years, humans have made more fundamental breakthroughs in physics than your civilization has achieved in the past 3 centuries. Zelnoth's crystalline form flickered with what was definitely alarm this time. "We are not just building on your foundations. We are redesigning them. We are finding new approaches to problems you solved long ago, and discovering that your solutions, while functional, are far from optimal." The implications of this statement spread through the chamber like wildfire. If humanity was truly making fundamental advances in technology and science at such a rapid pace, their current military successes might be only the beginning. Deho returned to the center of the chamber and faced Chancellor Vextar directly. "You want to put us in our place. You want to teach us humility and respect for our betters. You want to show us that the natural order of things places ancient species above young ones, powerful civilizations above weak ones, established authorities above upstart newcomers." His voice dropped to barely above a whisper, but somehow every being in the chamber heard it clearly. "Here is our place. We are the future. We are what you could have become if you had not stopped growing, stopped learning, stopped reaching for something better than what you already had." He spread his arms wide, encompassing the entire assembly. "Look around you. Look at this grand chamber, this impressive station, this mighty council that rules the galaxy. It is beautiful. It is powerful. It is ancient and respected, and exactly the same as it was 500 years ago." The silence was now so complete that the soft hum of the chamber's life support systems sounded like thunder. "We are the reminder that evolution does not end with civilization. We are the proof that young species can become great, not by following the path of their elders, but by forging new paths entirely." Deho's voice began to rise again, not with anger, but with an intensity that seemed to fill the chamber with electricity. "We are what you were once before you became comfortable. We are what you could be again if you remembered how to dream beyond maintaining what you already have." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of prophecy. We are your future, whether you choose to embrace it or fight it. Because we will not stop. We will not slow down. We will not accept limitations imposed by those who have forgotten what it means to grow. The final words came out in a tone so quiet it was almost conversational, but they carried more menace than any shout could have conveyed. This council is dismissed. For several heartbeats, nobody moved. The casual dismissal of the galaxy's most powerful governing body by a representative of its youngest member species was so unprecedented that it took time for the implications to sink in. Then, slowly, the human delegation began to walk toward the chamber's exit. They moved in perfect formation, their steps synchronized, their bearing proudly military. They did not hurry, they did not look back, and they did not ask permission to leave. Behind them, the galaxy's most powerful beings sat frozen in their seats, suddenly aware that the comfortable assumptions that had governed their civilization for millennia had just been shattered by a species they had dismissed as primitive children. As the chamber doors closed behind the humans, Chancellor Vextar finally found his voice. "This cannot stand," he whispered. "We cannot allow—" "Allow what?" interrupted Quintal of the hierarchy. "Allow them to be right? Allow them to be stronger than us?" added War Chief Brackmore, his voice subdued. "Allow them to be what we used to be?" finished Sage Prime Zelnoth. The questions hung in the air unanswered as the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy confronted a terrifying possibility: that their age of supremacy was ending, and something younger, hungrier, and more adaptable was taking their place. In the corridor outside, Deho walked steadily toward their ship, his face calm but his mind racing. They had just declared independence from the Galactic Order in the most dramatic way possible. There would be consequences. Some species would try to forge closer ties with humanity. Others would see them as an existential threat to be eliminated. But for the first time since receiving that original summons, Deho felt confident about humanity's future.